Who's on?
You are live.
All right. No. No. Okay. All right, so we're live. All right, so I'll officially begin the legislative rules and governmental operations committee meeting. The date is January 24th, 2023. The time is 12:49 p.m. And is there any motion to approve the minutes of the prior committee meeting? Motion made by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any comments, thoughts, changes? All right, all those in support of the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, it's unanimous, so it passes. Privilege of the floor. Anybody want to comment about today's agenda? All right, let's go to action items. To review and approve the Warren County usage policy and the red line changes from November 22nd. So we had about 2 hours.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I need to jump in, but did you want to take care of this item? This is kind of short.
Yeah, that's kind of, I looked over at him when and he didn't indicate any desire. All right, so like before we can begin, hopefully we'll have this wrapped up quickly, but who knows? Stan, if you'd like to make a comment to the committee.
One comment I have. Last spring, we met in Saratoga Springs with the Saratoga Commission on the 250th, and Devin Lander, the state historian, pulled me aside and said, I'm anxious to see what Warren County is going to do. So we approached the bed tax committee and they approved a $23,000 amount that I understand now we have to amend the budget so that we can spend that money. We're not ready to spend it, but we want to spend it. You have questions, I'll try and answer, but
Any questions for the county historian, Stan Sofrano?
No, it's,
Yeah,
thanks, Chairman. It sounds like we did a lot of that yesterday. We transferred unspent monies from 22 into 23. I mean, that's what we're proposing to do this morning or this afternoon. Good. Okay. I just want to make sure.
so,
That's his agenda item.
oh,
That's
okay,
on the historian agenda. There's just the one item to amend the budget.
all right.
It should be just the one.
Yeah.
That's his item.
All right, so we have an agenda item. And that is in regards to the 23,000 we just was in question. So the request is based on Board of Supervisors approval to fund the American Revolution 250th celebration, resolution 735 of 2022, December 16th, 2022, from Warren County occupancy tax funds. The following codes are to be established in the Warren County budget. And they are, and I guess you have a copy of the resolution. Good. So, and the rationale has just been presented by County Historian Stan Sofrano. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion made by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Thomas.
Just a question for Stan.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Stan, when you mentioned that the state is curious about what we're going to do, does that mean they're going to kind of jump on the bandwagon and help us out with some more things that are happening up here?
yes.
Awesome.
That's,
Do we know yet, or is it up to you to
No,
help guide them?
the state, we're ahead of the time period. Officially, the revolution starts in 2025, but because of our importance in the French and Indian War, which was the precursor, we need to start next year. The state hasn't, they said they're going to have a budget and we distribute money to these people, us, the commissions. But they haven't made any decisions yet,
Very good.
not even an amount that are going to split up.
So the sky's the limit then, depending on well, how good of a job you do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
Good luck. Get us as much as you can.
Oh, yeah, we're planning.
Well, and one of the first events will be the recognizing Henry Knox. A lot of people don't realize that as the artillery and cannons came down from Crown Point and Fort Ticonderoga via boat and some overland, that they needed to make sleds, needed to get oxen and or strong horses. They spent 2 weeks in December here in our region preparing for the southward and ultimately over to near Boston area. But 2 weeks they spent here. A lot of people don't realize because no other place on the next trail adventure did they spend any kind of time like they did here. That's quite a story. All right, so that'll begin things off. And then it'll have a series of events from there. Okay, any other discussion? Let's put it to vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, motion passes. All right, now, if I'm going to assume that we've reviewed in the page 2 of 9, page 3 of 9, page 4 of 9, and we get over to page 5 of 9, and Mike Coleman is present, Director of IT, to help us. So the first redlined item is 5, paragraph 5, third bullet, that says the device being used to connect to the county's computer network must be, we are proposing to eliminate the previous language, an approved county device. Now, Michael, does that meet your standard?
Yeah, there was like the second bullet had some extra wording that didn't really apply and just kind of confused things. Then the third bullet, it was just to kind of define that two-factor authentication to make sure no matter how you access the county, whether it be webmail or VPN, and you need a county device for VPN, but not for the webmail. So that's much clearer now.
So I've assumed the first 4 pages, there's no questions, but if you do have questions on the first 4 pages, you're welcome to entertain those.
But just no personally owned devices.
For VPN connections, that's where we clean up the wording, because the
Okay.
first wording kind of confused it, like you needed a county device to access your webmail, and that wasn't what we were trying to say. We're trying to say you're only going to access the county 2 ways, VPN and webmail. No matter how you do it, two-factor authentication.
Okay.
And if you're using VPN, that's where we want, it's got to be an approved county device.
Gotcha.
All right, so are we all happy with the proposed red line change on page 5 of 9? Okay, any other questions on page 5? Let's go to page 6. All right, so proposed changes is we, in addition of B, the Director of Information Technology Department or the designee from within the IT department shall be the only county officer or employee authorized to access email archives when authorized by this policy. Okay. And then C has a proposed change. And C reads for the proposed C, for official business purposes only, County department heads may access data from the computer network for any employee under the department's supervision, comma, or may request and receive data from the email archives for employees in the department. My only question about that, who's going to assure that it's for business purposes only? Yes,
I have a question too. Who defines official business?
well, that's about my same concern.
If I could, I don't know how, we have, back on the 13th, we submitted the red line version, and the version that it appears the committee is using is not the version which was submitted on the 13th. So it does not appear that this committee is that's the final copy that was submitted.
I assume this was your red line version because at the last meeting you said that you would work on a red line version based on what you heard at that meeting, and that would be submitted to the committee, and that at our next meeting, we'd be reviewing it.
Yes.
But that's not the case.
Well, this red line version was one of two versions that I personally prepared. And it is not the version that I thought was going out to the committee.
But we can get some-
The version that I have that I'm working on. Different than what the committee is looking at.
Let's get the right copy.
That's not gonna make Supervisor Conover happy. Because he wanted to get this out of the way and get this active ASAP.
Well,
But I don't know any way of getting around.
we could print them out, right? This the red line pages? Did we? Well,
So that might be,
Generally, while they're figuring this out, generally. My concern with this first section is the whole idea here was to create a good process, responsible checks and balances, and that everything be done in writing for a governmental operation.
Yeah.
And I think by and large, I think this definitely moves it much, much further. My problem with the front end of this is that while I understand what it's trying to say is even the request of the department head and the county administrator at a minimum should be in writing. There needs to be a record. There needs to be a record that is being requested. Who requested it? It can't be a word of mouth. Who requested it? And on that, there should be a some type of explanation. And most of this time, we don't even think about this stuff. It goes on a daily basis and we don't give it an awful lot of thought. But I think that there needs to be some interjection that the request by anyone needs of the IT department, any information, whether the department or the government should be in writing. There should be a justification or an explanation.
coincidentally, I have the same exact observation on my notes, as you just said. Any request has to be in writing.
It's essential. And
Yeah.
and I
So
think
there's a record.
and a record, and then an explanation, and that there should be no response by the IT department until they're in receipt of that. And then the question becomes, okay, it says that the language is for any it says that from the computer for any non-official business purposes, employee assigned units and responsibility is strictly prohibited. But then up above, it says assigned duties and responsibilities. Well, that's pretty broad. I'm the county administrator. I could park almost any vehicle under that title, I think. I mean, it's part of my responsibility. Well, okay, well, it should be in writing.
Well, if you see in D1, do you see what it says?
If I may for just one moment, if we could take a 5-minute recess, because most of these concerns are in the version. we're
Okay,
working on
very
here.
good.
Oh, okay.
Very
And I
good.
apologize for the confusion I created where, that the committee did not receive the most current version.
I mean, there's a prohibition now. I'm not particularly concerned with whether it's this week or next week or the week after. My understanding is there's an overpowering prohibition where no one's supposed to be going to the IT department. They haven't had anything relative to this. We have a very clear policy and what it's supposed to be, and I'm good with that. That's why the last 2.5 years, however long it's been, I've been, complaining, but I've been, patient.
What I'd ask and with the pleasure of the committee is if the director of IT could address. And so we're all on the same page as what the computer network is. What email means and what email archives mean. Is there different parts of the system? And my understanding from IT. It's accessing the archive, which is what the IT department is called to do from time to time. So I'm not sure if that would assist. Computer network is everything. Portion of that, though, is the email archive. So you'll see different terms as you work through section 4.
I think there's.
So what's being handed out was the actual. And to go back to you're not on that. Free password requirement, you'll see. Subparagraph 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So we're at the bottom of page 9, Larry.
I believe it would be the bottom of page 5.
Yeah, 5, yeah.
Where's the updated version?
You want this one?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, this is that.
No,
So look
this-
at the red.
Yeah, there's something that's not right.
Oh, he sent it to me. This is the. Yeah. I'm just comparing to make sure.
The intention of drafting the words in the policies to make it absolutely clear. The violation of the policy.
Is there a possibility to turn up our attorney's mic pinch? He's such a soft speaker. I know we were able to turn up the other ones here yesterday because they were turned down. But I always have a hard time of hearing him. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks, Mike. Bessie, would you? We can hear you, Brad.
Yeah, I think it does respond a little bit.
What?
I don't know how you want to proceed. I could bounce around here. That's how you want to do this.
How does committee, you want to do it page by page, kind of like we were in that
Yeah.
format? So, the most recent handout, page 1, purpose, doesn't seem to be any offered changes or amending. Same with pages 2 and 3 of 9, except for on page 3, the word unless was added, proposed to be added. And then we have page 4 of 9, no proposed amending. Page 5 of 9, the proposed amending is, it seems to be worded more in accord with what I heard from Mike, actually.
Yes.
Only county-approved devices shall be used to connect to the VPN. Okay? And then, section 3, dealing with password requirements, there's some proposed changes. All passwords used by county officers and employees to access county network data or information system must be kept secure. As such, the following specific criteria must be met for every password, and they list the criteria with D, Roman numeral 2, subsection 3 included as 3, base 10 digits, 0 through 9. And then there's 2 county officers, employees shall only access the county computer network by use of their individually assigned passwords. No county employee, officer, or employee shall share their password to access the computer network with any non-employee or member of the general public. 4, no county officer or employee shall share their password to access the computer network with any county officer or employee, to include their supervisor, department head, or any other member of the IT department. And then proposed numbering of 5 instead of 3. Under no circumstances shall any county officer or employee request from another county officer or employee their passwords to access computer network. Specifically, no supervisor, department head, or member of the IT department shall request from any county officer or employee the password for access. Any questions, suggestions on password requirements?
That seems kind of generic to me, and I'm thinking, Michael, this is probably something that came out of, some textbook somewhere or something like that. Is that?
Oh, good. I mean, yeah, the county attorney put it together.
All right.
But
okay.
yeah,
So-
all your basic stuff.
Now that you
just completely
Yeah, it's not-
insulted him.
Just making sure that it's clear when there's a violation.
Okay. All right.
Okay, there might be more thought, or I'm sorry. Edna, anything? No. All right, let's go to 4, access to computer network data. Supervisor Conover was just saying that any request has to be in writing. Do we have that here? So let's take a look. Proposed new B, the Director of Information Technology or designee within the IT department shall be the only county officer or employee authorized to access email. Should we say email or email archives? Is there a difference, county? Is there a difference, Mike?
Yeah, there's a difference. If you picture an email comes into the county, there's a copy is made, it goes to the archives, a completely separate system. Then it goes to the person's individual email. And so when we're talking about searching, we're not searching through people's emails that they're using, that they're adding, they're deleting from and whatever they're doing. It's the archives is always what's in question, is being searched for something.
So should we add access email or email archives when authorized by this policy, just to have us covered?
I don't believe so, because the IT department will never be involved with an individual's email
Okay,
search, only a search of the email archive. Is
All
my
right.
understanding.
Correct, yeah, because you could, whoever's doing a search for whatever reason, you can't assume that the person's email is up to date because they may have deleted what it is that's being looked for.
all right, I thought I'd ask, thank you. And the next one, I think does meet Supervisor Conover's concern. All requests to access email archive shall be in written form to the director of IT or his designee.
So who makes, is it sort of like the two-factor thing also? Is it a department head requests it and then it needs approval from someone else?
Well, if that's what you want, we can add that. Supervisor Driscoll.
Yeah, I guess in going along with Mr. Wild, I was just wondering, I read up above in the black letters, but I would be more comfortable if, I'm not trying to put more work on the administrator or Amanda's office or anyone else, but that someone else is at least getting CC'd of what the request is.
So what I'm hearing, County Council, is that any request for email archive information, approval has to be multiple authentication kind of thing. In other words, more than one approval would be needed.
And right,
Yeah,
In-
I'd recommend that it go to the county administrator then from the department head.
Yeah.
I think it's necessary, because then when you get to, I think that's necessary, because I think G on page 7 of 9, I'm only go forward only because it's related. It says that a whole host of people can direct the director of information technology to access, and I don't think that language is what we want.
And we're gonna get there. There's a choice that's built into that I'm looking for guidance from.
Okay, all right, very good.
It's not all. I'm hoping the committee can pick one.
Chairman?
Yes,
I think it also puts a lot of unnecessary responsibility on the part of our IT director too. I mean, it would be nice to have that second essentially signature on the check.
So, and that's second signature on the check is going to be the county administrator.
Right, yeah.
And everyone's happy with that?
Yeah, I think if we're reading it there, we're putting up here that it must be in writing, and then each of the bullets below has additional requirements depending on the direction of the request. As you jump ahead, it says you got to do that. And if it's coming from here and needs approval, the county administrator, director of human resources, and county attorney. So I think just some extra one there already as we go down through. It just, I think C just means it will be in writing, but that's not the end all.
That's just the blanket general rule. And then depending on where you are in the county structure depends on who's required to be involved in that. Because your county department heads supervise their employees. So the concept was if they need, one, they have access to the computer network irregardless. But if they need access to the email archives for official purposes only, for their employees that they supervise in their department, that would be a simple request to the IT director. What I hear is that the committee would like that to go through the county, to the county administrator, for the county administrator to approve, and if approved, send to IT.
Yes, that's
I'm
what
fine
I'm
with
hearing.
that.
All access requests have to be in writing and receive the approval of
It all just goes to the county administrator. It'd be different when we get there. Okay.
county administrator and the department head.
Well, the
Before-
department head, I believe, would be sending the request because he needs access to the email
Let's
archive.
say it is.
And the county administrator would review it and either approve it by sending it to IT or not.
All right, let's say it's county superintendent. I'm making a request for someone's email. What we're saying is that request has to be in writing and has to go through 2 approvals before it goes to Mike to carry out.
I guess what I'd like to do is take this step by step if we could,
Yeah,
because there's a kind of a structure here.
okay.
And then if I missed something under that structure, maybe we can loop back.
But
to
you're
it.
understanding what we're saying.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the way I would put it is, there are those things that are rudimentary. Right? Department head needs the following information. Sends it to the county administrator goes, yep, fine. And it goes off. And then there's those things that go beyond the rudimentary. Right? That, as they say, is a horse of a different color. Right, now we start to get involved in things like checks and balances, due process. Now we start to get involved with other kinds of questions, and I think that what a counselor has done here is to try to distinguish, if you will, begin to separate what might be termed the more rudimentary things from those that are not so rudimentary. Now, who's the traffic cop on that? I think it's got to be the county administrator. Like all roads have to go through the county administrator. Now, there's checks and balances after, even with the county administrator. But I don't think you want, 2 or 3 dozen people dealing with the IT department or directing the IT department. We can't have that.
So let's go back to my example. I've submitted a request for certain emails. So that comes out of a certain department. Let's say it was the legal department. So the head of legal department would have to approve that request, and the county administrator would have to approve that request. Then it gets sent to Michael for him to fulfill, him or a designee.
Actually, right now, I think it still includes the human resource director as well. does it
Yeah,
not?
but we're not at that point yet, meaning for a supervisor's request. That's the open question, is that from the Board of Supervisors, who may directly request access basically to the email archives through IT? Is it all 20 members of the Board of we're jumping ahead a little bit now. All right, is it all members of the Board of Supervisors, each individually having the right to access email archives? Or is it the committee chairs? Or is it the chairperson? And that's the topic for the way I wrote G, is at what level is that? Who's the person? And then there's the procedure that would follow once we identify the category or person that can start that process. And what you're requesting is really accessing directly you're accessing the email archives directly. Subject to other parties being made. Actually, nobody really being made aware of it. So if we go through G. Well, the foil is a little bit different.
A little bit different.
So
It's still
if it's
information.
access to data generated by any of the statutorily appointed positions in the county. Well, and except for the county administrator, the clerk of the board, county attorney, county auditor, county public defender, county purchasing agent, or any employee of those departments, then that procedure applies. Right? One, it's a written request to the IT department. Two, the consent of the county administrator, director of HR, and the county attorney. Unless one of those 3 individuals are the employee whose data is being requested.
Well, let's say it has to be approved by 2 of the 3 above, because one of the request is coming from the county administrator. Then it'd be county council and HR.
That's a different section. So we jumped ahead
All right,
to answer the question that's on the supervisor's mind, which is what are the supervisor's abilities to access email archives? And we skipped over accessing it for non-supervisors. I guess would be the way to phrase it.
Okay,
So we're
different
only talking about
My
supervisors.
feeling is any of those just mentioned could make application for that information. I don't know that we need to limit it. Frankly, not a very often used thing in the first instance. So I'm not concerned about it in terms of volume of business or consuming time here. So my feeling is any supervisor, whether they hold position on the board or don't hold position on the board, whether they're chair of a committee or not a chair of a committee, so the chairman of the board or not chairman of the board, can complete that application and shoot it off to the county administrator. Now, whether it gets approved or not,
Use the same
whether it gets
chain.
approved, it has to comply, it would have to comply with this.
Well,
That's my.
it might be simpler than that. What are the purposes and in what instances can you request an email? And the only reason in my mind is continuation, there's two of them. It's continuation of providing the services to the public. All right, somebody's sick, but we need to get this bid out, or we need to do something like that. Or there's some legal action that's happening that we need to do a defense for, and this person is suspected of doing something illegal. And it's out of our hands totally. It goes over to the, I don't know, DA's office or something like that. But there's no reason for us to be going into someone's email unless there's some suspicion they're doing something wrong, they're hurting the county, or we need to continue county business. I think we're getting too complicated.
So as it is, though, from what I understand, is any request. And that's some of the confusion is that this might be coming out of committee or part of a committee head, but that as Supervisor Conover said, it could be not related to that. However, it's an email request to the email archives by a supervisor. And all we're cared about is fun, be it in writing, so it's a record that's attainable. And two, have a multi-approval process, two people. One being the county administrator, the second being county counsel's office. Right? I mean, or pick,
Well, and the third is human resources, because that touches on all the possible sensitive areas. And so all three of those departments are taking a look at it. And, what this is directed for is the ongoing question over the last year of what records can I access as a supervisor? Because we've had supervisors who've done a number of foils that are large foils to get records, and then they go through the foil process. So what this committee is, there's two extremes here, right? There's the one extreme where all 20 supervisors have the ability to request the email archives for every single county employee in Warren County. Then there's the other extreme where none of them do. I don't know where on that continuum the Board of Supervisors wants to fall, but there's issues and concerns, obviously, with both extremes. So this is designed as a way to determine, is every supervisor, is it the intention of the Board of Supervisors in governing yourself, which is your sole obligation under county law, that every supervisor can look at every issue with every employee? Or is it moving off of that, the supervisors assigned to committees for the departments they oversee, and then moving even more restrictive, is it the chairman who's presented with the issue or request from a supervisor for a committee, for a department they oversee? Going to the most extreme would be only the chairperson can receive those requests from supervisors and then determines which ones to provide access to. So, and there might be other breakouts in that continuum, right? Every supervisor, every email, every employee, chairperson, only person authorized. So between those two extreme points, there might be other points, but that's the question. The question is how much access and how does it connect to what your oversight assignments are or not? That's kind of the overall, that's kind of what I throw out to the committee for mulling over, because that's what goes to the core of what this section G is about. Who and how much?
Okay. So section G,
So let's, why don't we just chat about it? How about if a supervisor serving on a committee could ask that committee chair? And that committee chair can decide whether or not they should go to the board chair. And then the board chair looks at that and says, I need to talk to the county administrator, and I need to talk to legal, and I need to talk to HR before we go forward with this. Make sure it's a reasonable request. I don't know, sounds like it's a lot of, sounds like we get bogged down. I think. And that's from history of being on this board for 5 years and seeing some of the things that have happened. Right? Is somebody going to ask, and are we going to get bogged down trying to deal with these requests? My sense is, if there's an issue, we talk about it committee. We go through it in committee, we decide yes or no, this is something we need to go into and look into. And that's it. We say no, it's done. We say yes, then we may have to go to the full board.
well,
But I don't think I should have the right or the audacity to say, I need that person's email because of whatever reason. I'm one supervisor out of 20. We need to have a collective to decide what's going on. My sense.
yeah, I think,
And it happens in the committee process, like it happens right here, right now.
I think we're agreeable to what you're saying, Brad.
I know I'm speaking out of line with the public, but this is good. I mean, we have to, but what happens if you're going, I mean, in the process that Supervisor Wild is going, what happens if we're trying to get, say, our, chairperson? And if we have to go to him first or her, whoever it may be, and they're like, oh, geez, she's coming after me, and that gets bogged down. I think there's too many people in the process, like you said, to get there. I think it really should be down to the county administrator and the attorney.
Well,
Yeah, man, maybe that goes back into the, it's related to county business, right? Is this a political request or is it a county business request? And I think the whole purpose here is to stop the political tomfoolery, right? I think that's the whole, let's get right down to the chase. Stop the politics, get out of this stuff, and let's get into doing our
How about
work.
this? No supervisor can, on their own, access email archives except through FOIL. See, FOIL has its own filtering system.
Exactly.
Now, and to your point, if it's a committee decision to have a need for more information, then that committee's chair can start the process based on the consensus of the committee. Yeah, okay, I think I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah, Ben?
Again, I think let's use the county administrator, and if in his opinion, it's an issue that has legal consequences or personnel consequences, or a department head needs to be pulled in for clarification or to, discuss the matter, that I know that he's capable of doing that and assessing, I got to pull in Larry, I got to pull in Jackie, I've got to pull in department head, and then they collectively have coffee and talk about it, and it gets done.
Yeah.
That would probably be my recommendation, is it goes to the county administrator who talks to the county attorney all the time and the human resources. And we just consult and make a decision.
And actually, our county administrator was with the National Security Agency, who has access to everyone's emails.
Yeah.
I think he knows what's going on here.
Who, by the way, disagrees with the password requirements, but that's.
So why couldn't we change G? Why couldn't we just change the G paragraph, Larry? To be that for official purposes only, the people as a chairperson, committee chair and or supervisor can access or can request this access through and with the approval of the Personnel Committee. If you got something you want, and it's beyond FOIL, it's beyond everything else, you bring it to the Personnel Committee. And you present it to the Personnel Committee. If the Personnel Committee says, at that moment in time, the Personnel Committee says, okay, we need this information, then they're the ones that put it in writing. They're the ones to, the chair of the Personnel Committee would submit it in writing, and that would that still would have to meet with the approval of the county administrator and the attorney, and because there may be protected information, there may be information that has to be redacted, there could be a whole host of issues associated with that the provision of that information. So I think if you want to do it that way, I mean, I think but even that road leads through the gatekeeper, which is the county administrator. In other words, for the actual implementation.
So
I
let
don't
me-
want the implementation going directly from that to the IT department. That's that I want to avoid.
So let me see if I'm understanding. Supervisors individually, other than through FOIL, will not be allowed to make individual requests to the email archives. It has to go through, you're suggesting, the Personnel Committee, and then gain the approval of county council and county administration. And then it will go to Mike.
Yes. And it's gonna, obviously, that would have
All
to be
right.
for cause.
So I like repeating
Like
things,
the
so
language here is suggesting.
we're all
there's
on
gonna
the
be a
same
cause for
page,
that.
and county council can work with the language to make it what we want it to say.
Is that the committee approving it or just the chair of the personnel committee?
I think they would authorize the chair to make the submittal in writing. That has to be in writing to the three parties mentioned, but
Okay.
through the county administrator.
Brad?
Thank you again for letting me participate here. Even though I'm not on the committee. I've brought this up in the past, and this was a good time. There's nothing that I read about every county employee and official should have a county email. Because what's the sense of having an archive when there's, could be certain individuals that don't have a county email and we get nothing archived.
I have a county email, but I also have QBY supervisor at queensberry.net.
But where does
Anything you
your,
want to foil from me, that's.
No, that's not the point. And, basically. Any emails that come from the county should go to the county email to any official or employee in that. So there's an archive of where that email went. Where it goes from there, is up to you. But, in my opinion, because, really the bottom line, the information that I have come across, there are 5 people that have had a tendency to extend things to June maximum. And we were only able to find one because of the county email. And I'm not trying to bring up a stink or anything, so that's why I asked before.
Yeah, but I don't know if what you're offering is going to give you the solution you're seeking.
Well,
Because
what we're
Let's
talking
say I
about,
used my county email. And then I sent that to Jack Spratt. And Jack Spratt sent it to somebody else.
in your county email, and if you sent it out, we'd be able to see where you sent it. Is that correct?
You would see where it was sent, correct?
Okay,
However, I get just to be, so we all, where we're going. If you're corresponding with anybody in the conversation in the county, it's always here. If we're going from the Queensberry and he's talking to me, it's always archived because at least one participant's in the county. If we're concerned about things going out, we've lost control of it. There's no way you can
well,
control that.
that you can't really do. We take an oath. I signed an oath the other day.
You end
saying,
up being,
Brad, and anybody can use their own personal emails and get around this stuff that you're talking about. So it's not a big deal, right? There's not much you can do about it. Same thing like executive session, right? Somebody's going to tell somebody and it gets out there. All right. What I'm really concerned about is not the fact that somebody might be sharing some information outside, because there's nothing we can do about that. what I'm concerned about is the access to employee records that I think that we need to be really sensitive to. We need to show we have trust for our employees. At the same time, we need to have a system that says if there's suspicion that there's something happening, then there's a multi-step process to go through to verify yes or no. Or if they're sick, ill, whatever, they can't respond, we need to respond. We have a way to get into their emails to figure out what do we need to do to keep the county running or keep something running.
I might add to that we can digress into all kinds of conversations. Right now, there are no clear rules to the road. And so let's create some rules to the road. They can be amended in the future. If you find that there's something to improve upon it, introduce it. We're a lawmaking body. You come back, you come here, you come to wherever, and you can introduce it. So that's what this is attempting to do, is create some rules for the road, create some accountability, create a written trail, paper trail. And I actually like the idea that bring it to the personnel committee if there's cause. I'm sure the personnel committee can take appropriate make appropriate requests and take appropriate action. That's how it should be handled. That's how it should be handled. And I like that. And then it spells out within reason, it gives some guidance, if you will, to the county administrator and the county attorney and the human resources director that, you know, this channel is a channel for cause, and that, you know, that and I think it works that way. And we can always amend this and change it in the future.
Okay. Brad?
Making rules here. So I'm making a suggestion. I kind of brought it up last year at the end of the meeting. I brought it up before that. I was told by the chairman at that meeting, or it was brought out to the meeting, that you didn't feel a need for it. I actually see a need for it now. All right. I have heard of the need. Now I've seen the need. And that's what I'm reaching out, is that all the supervisors need to see that need. And there's been harassment that's been going around, and we can't do anything about it because we can't show it. So this way, if everybody uses the county, at least we can see a direction. Where it goes out from there afterwards and where we see a forward. But if we're going to put rules and regulations down for our employees and everybody, we always have to have them, because there's some supervisors that don't understand that the oath that they are taking too. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I have had this conversation when I believe with our attorney of, you know, of what we can do, and there's nothing we can do because there's really no evidence. But why we're saying so, it's kind of a simple thing. Is that if you work here at the county or you represent the county or anything, you have an email address. I have a Queensbury Planning Board email. I have a personal email. I have a political email. All right. I have a junk email, Yeah, I admit, but at least now I can click on to which one I need to read, and then I can focus just on that one. Unfortunately, sometimes when I think you have a town and a county all going into one, that's a lot of information and stuff gets missed. Just my suggestion, maybe for me, but I would like to say, if we're making laws, that we should look into everybody that works at the county, employee or not, elected official, all goes through and then after it leaves that and it gets forwarded, that's up to your conscience.
All right.
Not the county.
We work on consensus here.
Thank you.
Is there interest or a consensus among the committee to force all emails and correspondence via email to be strictly Warren County email addresses? Did I state that right?
The topic in front of us is how we access the IT department. That's the question that's in front of us.
I know, but
And we have all kinds of rules that deal with all kinds of issues. I
if
think
there
that-
is a consensus to pursue
I think
this,
the-
I'll bring it
I'm not
back
sure I
up.
completely understand what is being suggested here, and again, it digresses us. Yes, we're creating rules here. Supervisor McGowan, but the rules that we're creating is how we access the IT department. Now, I understand that that does not solve all of the problems of the world. I get that. But if there's something else that this committee or any committee of the board needs to be considering going forward, then we can put this on the agenda and we can discuss this, and it gives our attorney time to think about it. It gives the county administrator time to think about it. This is a deliberative process. It gives everyone time to think about whatever it is that's being advanced.
This is access to archives,
Right.
right? It's not related to where your email comes from. So this is the emails that originally went out and go back and forth. Bradley, just, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
No, you don't.
I could take a picture.
You want things to change around here, then make some changes. Otherwise, if you guys all want to be secretive, you go right ahead.
We're not being secret.
No,
I'm
it's
not talking about
not.
this.
I think it deals with changes
You
that
can't
actually
expect
create
change when
change.
You get angry and you walk away.
I'm not, no.
Chair, could I comment once?
Yes, please.
Because it does impact the email archive. Right? So really, the rule or the suggestion would be very clear cut. That emails in between officers and employees go to the Warren County email address. That never would prevent and should not prevent a supervisor from having those emails forwarded to another email address, a town email address, but at least there's a record that's showing the communications in and between every Warren County employee and officer. And it's clear that that then is part of the archive, and where that email goes from that email account is then also in the archive. What happens to it once it's forwarded to a non-county email is outside of the control of the county and the IT department, but at a minimum, it does keep a record of what goes out and what goes into an account and what comes out of a county account, which I believe is what the supervisor from Queensberry is looking for.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Larry.
And I know I have access to this. This is not my county email, but I tell anybody that wants to email me, please email my county and email my personal. So if it's in a hurry, if you need to respond quickly, I'll see it here. Otherwise, I check my county emails once a day, sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I miss a whole day. So it's important, right? I feel it's important to be able to have access to when somebody needs me to make a decision. So, but it's fine. I don't mind having my stuff go to the county email also.
Supervisor
No problem with
Driscoll.
that.
Yeah, just a comment. This is an important discussion, but it's one that I find very troubling because as has been mentioned, it borders on us not trusting each other, respecting each other, and I think my plate is clean because when I was first elected in 2006, I had business cards made up, city council, and I used my personal email. My first 2 years up here, I used my personal email. I continue to get emails from constituents and members of the public. Probably 75% of them are to my personal email because I passed out hundreds of business cards at that time, and people don't have access to the most of my people don't go to the county website for different addresses and telephone numbers. Also, in a given day, if I send out 7 correspondence or respond to people, probably 8 or 9 of them are either a telephone call or a personal visit to an individual, their office or their home. So there's no way of tracing those, as I understand it. That's just my way of doing business. I don't have I don't use a smartphone, so I don't get emails on my smartphone. I check my emails in the morning. And in the evening when I get home, maybe if I run home for a sandwich, I'll check them. That's when I get my emails. Oftentimes, Amanda's office will send something up at 8:30 for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I never saw it because, again, I'm on the road up here. But I think it just speaks, and it's sad, but I realize it's part of who we are as a state nation, and that we have to have all of these policies and procedures, and we can't trust. But that's where we are, and I think the best way is to make sure that everyone, all 20 individuals, have an opportunity to not just this committee, but to make sure that they see it and have an opportunity to give their comments and criticisms and critiques, and don't rush it down the road, but don't kick the can down the road either. You know, be persistent, get it done, but get it done in a timely and efficient manner. And both of those, the timeliness of it is important as the efficiency, because you know it shouldn't be something that we have to. We can tweak it, but we shouldn't be doing this conversation every year or twice a year. Let's get it right the first time.
Okay.
And it's gonna take time to define what is being suggested here. And it's gonna take some thought. What I'm saying, what's in front of us is how we access the IT department over and above FOIL. That's what we're dealing with at this moment. I'm prepared to put on the agenda, whatever Supervisor McGowan wishes to put on the agenda, and we can discuss it. And if we can initiate rules on that, I'd be happy to. But that's not what's in front of us today. And we're gonna have to just be able to explain to people when they must use the county email. And that's gonna take time to discuss that. When must you use that county email? You have to use it all the time for all situations, all communications in all situations. I mean, that's gonna bear some conversation, I think.
Well, and not only that, but Mike knows that I have one big dumping pool for all my emails, whether it's Community Action Committee, which is, I work through the community, through the county. All it gets dumped in one place, and I have to address them all. Now, what I would simply do is I would put a rule on my jstrow at warrencounty.newyork.us, whatever it is, that all those emails get forwarded to qbysupervisor@queensberry.net. So they'll all come to the same dumping place anyways.
We're gonna want
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Colvin to wait in.
well,
on
what
this.
you're saying is, let's have this conversation, do all
Happy
due
to have that
respect to, you know, Brad and Kevin.
Well, I'm not a tech guy. I've had Kevin.Gary@townwardsburg.net for 17 years. And that's where I get all my information. And I don't understand what's going on. I'm not gonna do another email. I'm not gonna get another email. I know there's one set up for me, the county, I've never used it. I don't know if there's 1,000 emails in there, everything comes to Kevin.Garrity@townwardsburg.net. If you want to reach me, and then if you want to come search our server at the town of Warrensburg, be my guest. But I'm not gonna do another email. I have my own personal email, which you'll never get.
All right,
You know, that's the way I operate. I mean, I think all the town supervisors, most of them are supervisor at the town of Stony Creek, or supervisor at Bolton, supervisor at Work. Geez,
All right.
I mean, you know, if we weren't so.
so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Let's just get this policy.
Let's get, yeah. All right, so. County Council. Is there wording that you could propose for,
If
I
I can,
think it's G.
if I can start with C, I'd like to work right down and then hopefully we can check this off and kind of be done with the
Okay.
final copy.
Yeah, please do so.
So C will read as it's written, all requests to access email archives shall be in written form to the director of IT or his designee. D will read, for official purposes only, county department heads may access data from the computer network for any employee under their department's supervision and may request from the county administrator permission to access data from the email archives for employees in their department. I'm going to pause for agreement or comment.
We got a thumb up.
Okay,
Just what, if we're gonna specify email archives and somebody says, can I see their current email? That's separate than archives.
and
So,
but they're not coming to you for that.
Not coming to you.
right, just saying, so if they're saying they can request it, I want their current email, then they wouldn't need the county administrator if we're saying that, because archives is a separate entity. That's all.
But are they going to the IT department to access current email?
Yeah, we get, that's a common thing. If an employee's out sick, employees left, something like that, we're like, oh, we need to see, we're expecting something that employee was working on. That's a common
But
request.
you said those were in the archive earlier.
Oh, they are. I'm just saying, if you come to me to request, there's two different requests. Archive, which is the archive system of everything, or their current email. They're, because right now you can open up your mail and see different email boxes if you've been given permission to them. So that's really, there's two different things there.
I think we don't, I
Already in the
recommend we
archive.
don't, no one should have access to employee current email. If they want access to employee email, they have to go through the email archive, and that's the only thing we're gonna define.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's clear there, so that somebody doesn't. there's
No
two
one should be
paths.
coming to you asking for then current email,
Okay,
okay?
And I'll put a sentence in to make that clear.
We'll
Yeah.
make that clear.
Okay,
Okay, so
okay, go ahead.
So we're on E, and the purpose of E, before I read it, is that for business purposes, the county administrator, HR, and the county attorney regularly require access to or search information based on unique identification for an employee, their name, email address, or ID number. So that, if it's agreeable to the committee, that would give the county administrator, HR, and the county attorney the ability to request in writing searches, retrieval, and the data that is associated with a specific county employee or their identification information, except for elected officers.
All right, so just so I'm clear, for official business purposes only, the county administrator, director of human resources, or county attorney. So either one of those three can give approval?
No, we can request.
Oh, you can request. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Is that necessary, that paragraph?
Mhm.
It is.
I think so.
Okay,
Then the next paragraph addresses the same topic, but for a specific elected county officer. So if the county administrator, HR, or county attorney needs to access the data for using that officer's name, email address, or identification number, then there's a procedure that will be followed, which is the written request, setting forth what the business purpose is, providing a copy of that request to the elected officer, and obtaining the consent of the other two of that group of three. So for example, if the county attorney is requesting records for an elected officer, the county attorney notifies that officer and gets the authority or consent from the county administrator and director of human resources. The goal here is to put a check and balance in place and notice when the search is being done on an elected officer.
Okay,
Then that continues on to say this limitation on accessing the computer network data for a county elected officer shall not apply to the requests by a record access officer complying with FOIL, which is a theme you'll see throughout. FOIL is an exception to this access because that's governed by statute and separate policy. So at this point now, we've covered everyone except what we've been discussing as a committee, which is what information can supervisors request and how does that occur? And that's G, for official business purposes only. A supervisor of the Board of Supervisors may submit a written request to the chair of the Personnel Committee for consideration by the Personnel Committee. It should be for approval by the Personnel Committee to direct the Director of Information Technology to access the computer network. I think that's going to be for any officer or employee of the county. Then there'll be a new section which puts in place, and I'm going to have to get this back to you guys because it gets a little complicated here, but there's a method to ensure that someone looks at records before they're released. So for the county attorney's office, it would be outside counsel who provides labor law. For human resources, it would be the county attorney's office reviewing the records to make sure no privileged, confidential, personal information or HIPAA information is being disclosed. So I've tried to think through of how to protect those records which are statutorily protected. But I can't do that. I can't verbally walk you through that
I
right
would say
now.
that even that request from personnel should have to go through the three-party screening.
Absolutely.
You know, listen, my biggest interest here is that we have records that some of whom you've touched upon that are protected information, people's health situations are protected by HIPAA. We have court protected documents. We may have communications that relate to court protected documents that may include court protected information. How that material is accessed and how it's distributed is very important that protected documents stay protected. And individuals protected under those laws are protected. That's very, very important. That's why we need to have rules, and that's why we're spending so much time with this today. It's serious business, serious business.
And just to amplify, and we're doing something the county has never done before, or if they have, I can't find any record of it, which is really delineating, outlining, putting some substance on what over and above the county employees and the appointed positions, what the elected officers of Warren County can access, may access, can't access, you know. And no matter how much time, energy, and effort I kind of put into the what ifs, I'm going to miss something. I'm just going to miss it. I'm going to miss some category of records or something that, but I'm trying to get the highest percentage done, not 100%.
But the answer to that question is yes. However, here's the process that you have to go through. It's a written process, and the process is there to make sure that individuals that are protected. And that is critical. That does not exist today. And that we must put that in place. It's a question of good government. And, it's taken us a long time to get to this point. And I'm not gonna, but since we've had a bit of a moratorium and whatever, I'm good with that. But we need to put something in place to make sure that to the degree we can protect these individuals, that they are protected.
So,
If it's okay with the committee, I'd like the opportunity to really make this a final version. Meaning a final version that the county administrator's office, HR, myself, and IT can offer up to the committee next month. For the committee to really take a hard look and make the determination if this is what each of you and collectively believe is
so
a working version to go forward, so we can start moving on to FOIL and some other topics that I hope this
and
committee.
I don't
can
think we have any other choice but to allow you to do that. I know that there is some concern intermediacy, but we got to do it right. So, county council would like to put in wording as to the filter system. Certain records are personal and not publicly available, and he gave a list of others. I heard from Supervisor Conover. Let's make sure that we have language in there that even though it comes from the personnel committee, it needs to go through the multi-party approval or screening. Okay,
I have very good
That's-
guidance today, and the feedback is very helpful, because sitting in your office trying to do this out of your head is just hard. So thank you very much for your patience with me.
yeah.
And just as a new chair of personnel, if you could kind of give some guidance in terms of whether it needs to be executive session or not, what we can talk about, what the request needs to be, and how that request needs to be screened and possibly worded so that we aren't embarrassing someone. All right, or doing something we shouldn't be doing.
My recommendation will be that process wise, the supervisor, individual supervisor or group of supervisors would submit it to the county attorney, so that we could look at it and then move it forward in the appropriate format to the personnel committee.
All right.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, so the rest of this is, did you all get the report from Amy Clute in regards to the county insurance administration? She's also the safety
Chairman, I've got
officer. The activity for the self-insurance plan for basically the year, it was for December. So new claims are up, payments were down, lost work days are down 50%, county claim payments are down 50%. We're having more medical only claims. That's a good thing. So a lot of good things are happening. Thank you, Amy, for the report. All right, as far as FOIL requests and the FOIL policy, I probably should resend that draft to you before the next meeting. So is there anything else for the good of the order?
I would recommend that you don't send that draft out, because I want to finalize the computer policy. And then based on that, I'm going to have
All right.
updates on the FOIL
Scratch
policy,
what I just said.
if that's okay.
Oh, is there an IT request? All right, one more quick thing. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get any of this. We have a IT request. Mike, you want to go over that quickly?
Yep, it's a request, a resolution to move money from the computer reserve fund for server upgrades and replacements, and for a piece of equipment in the county clerk's office.
And thank you for keeping that up to date. And it's expensive. There's no way of getting around it. Motion to get it on the table made by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. And any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Conover, Supervisor Frazier, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Adjourn.